Hey guys, it's Matt. Please stick with me in the first 3 or 4 minutes here. Very important notes or things to reiterate before I start the chapter reading. The life test. Okay, as complex as it seems to get, it's actually getting simpler to me. So as it gets more complex and more stuff is thrown our way and there's more fraud to analyze, what is this Tartaria stuff that pops up? The more fraud, it's actually getting simpler to me. The answer is getting simpler. And right now it is this simple. And I need to reiterate this going forward. Step 1 is simply seeing the fraud. This life presents a trick. It presents everything in fraudulent fashion. It wants us to engage with the illusion. It wants us to merge with the screen around us. Step 1 of the life test is simply, I see the fraud. I see the fraud. Almost everybody here right now sees it. So if it's 3 grades, we've 3 freshman year, sophomore year, junior year, maybe you graduate after 3 years. We've graduated year 1. We're just kind of here for fun. I'm still presenting the fraud and pointing some things out and documenting history in a way that you guys appreciate. That's why we're here right now. But we see the fraud. We got number 1 done. Part 2, from the Hannibal Lecter example I gave a few videos back. Read the Marcus Aurelius of a thing. Break it into its simplicity. Clarice, what does he do, this man you seek? Okay? What does it do? The mechanism that we study oh so intently. What does it do? What does it want to do to us is the more important question. Not who is it, who's behind the curtain, who does Jared Kushner serve coffee and crimpets to. What does this mechanism, this reality mechanism that wants us to engage with it, what does it want from us? Okay, that's the whole next 200 pages of the book, or 150 pages coming very soon. Okay, we see the trick. We see there's a mechanism in place. Okay, the system wants us searching for the exact root of the mechanism, or there's a machine doing something. It just wants us searching for the machine. It doesn't matter where the quote metaphorical machine is. It's only important to see what is it doing or what does it want to do to us. That's step 2. Step 3 is doing for ourselves. It's that simple. Doing for ourselves. Because when we do certain things for ourselves, then that mechanism that wants to screw us over can no longer screw us over. It's like building a shield around yourself. It's that simple. The life test is that simple. The more complicated it gets, the simpler it appears to me, and I think it will get simpler to you. It wants to create more complication because it always wants you on that first stage. There's thousands of graduated animal farms in the first stage it's just an endless presentation of the fraud. Well, Matt, that's what you're still doing in the book. It's a book. I can't read all of it in 30 minutes or less. That's why I'm doing things like I'm doing now, to get you thinking beyond the fraud, beyond the animal farms. Okay? I'm very good at the first section, exposing the fraud, having people see it, breaking things down in a way so people can understand certain aspects of the fraud. I'm very good in stage 2, I believe, the mechanism. And that's coming in the book. I'm not as good at all at stage 3. Now I'll have all in the book, and it's coming up. I'll have all the basics of what I think we can do for ourselves. I mean, obviously it starts with what everybody knows. Never vote again. Be aware of all the contracts this society tries to bind you into. Even things as simple as clicking on the I agree buttons. We do that all the time to get a new cable service. I point out all the obvious, and I have a lot of common sense steps. And I have some big ideas. I'll present big ideas of what this whole reality system could be for our life test. I mean, big thoughts, but that's not my expertise, this third section. There will be, a lot of others that I'll look to and you'll look to get ideas and tips on what can we do to improve ourselves, to do the work here that we're supposed to be doing, the life work that we're supposed to be doing, to basically, in the most simplest way to simply deflect and to not take the poison bait that the mechanism, the middle section, wants us to take. It's that simple. And we'll present that, or we'll, through the comments and through my future presentations, we will constantly come back to those simple 3 steps. That's all it is. Now, doing the work for yourself, that's the rest of your lifetime. There's a lot to do there. But understanding the path, I think, is becoming simpler and simpler to me. Okay, and one other thing, I'm sure some people are saying, well, Matt, if we pass the 3 grades, well, what do we get? I mean, it's not, maybe it's just not that obvious, so we should talk about it for just another minute or two before I do the chapter reading. We don't know what comes after death. I mean, we just don't. But the correct life journey insulates us and shields us from anything bad, I believe, no matter what it is. It's the same preparation. All the stuff we hear on the internet about David Icke and the moon is just actually a satellite that reports to Saturn, and it's a soul recycling center. And maybe it is. We don't know. When we die, these archons come and they try to get us to go in the light, and that's a false light, and that gets us back here for another lifetime, or anything. The Christian heaven and hell. I mean, whatever. The correct steps of the life journey prepare and insulate for anything. We don't have to know exactly what happens, because would you do anything different? In other words, you wouldn't. The life journey is simple, so we wouldn't do anything different. I don't care. I'll listen to these theories about what may happen to me after death, or what tricks they might try to play on me, or whatever it may be. But it's still the same answer, using the tools of this realm in the same exact way. That's the beauty of it. It's like, you put insulation around the house. Well, did you put the cold insulation up or the heat insulation? It's the same. It works on hot days. It works on cold days. It works for everything. It keeps the rain out. Well, don't you want to analyze all the different types of storms coming? No, because I insulated the house properly. It's that simple. Well, one last thing. I always come back to what the Pope said. These are truth drops, in my opinion. I don't think anything would be put out this profound if it wasn't a truth drop. And it really was. I really perked up when I heard it, and I'll never forget it. And I'll mention it now and about 10 more times, probably before this book is done. When the Pope said, you would think the Pope representing the biggest element of quote Christianity, and I know the people here that are Christians don't associate with the Catholic Church. I know that. Who are you talking to here? I know that. But supposedly they would think that anybody representing the largest aspect of Christianity would present heaven and hell and traditions like that. No, but the Pope says bad souls, they don't go to hell. They just go to the abyss. Bad souls that don't, what I would say, don't follow the right life journey here. Don't use the tools this realm affords. But the Pope was just saying, like, bad people like Tony Soprano, their souls just go to the abyss. There's no hell. They just go to nothing. Then, of course, they did damage control and said, well, he never said that. He was having a private conversation with a friend of his who just happens to be this giant atheist writer that I'm sure, that makes sense for the Pope to be really close friends with this old guy who's a very famous European writer, but an atheist. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And then they did damage control. He never said that. Well, that's what they do. That's what that like the truth drops in anything. It's a giant truth drop, and then they cover it up like it's nothing. Like Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the Lambs, after the disgusting multiple MIGs scene. Look deep within yourself, Clarice, to find the answer. Look deep within yourself. And then it just turns out to be your self-storage. Oh, that's all it was. So all the dummies just think it's just there's just a head in there. It didn't mean anything. But you and I say, that means a lot right there. That's a freaking truth drop. So I think the same with the Pope, no doubt about it, especially how they tried to cover it up. Which means, to me, how I interpret that is, it's very similar to what I laid out a few minutes ago, the life test. Are you using the tools afforded here in this life, in this realm, to what Aristotle says, just there's a tiny little divine element in us, are using the tools this realm affords to find the divine element and to increase it. There you go. If it increases, you become, in maybe with a different set of glasses you can't see, you become a more powerful being. Are you increasing the divine self? This is exactly, Aristotle said it, the same truth drop in the Pope saying it goes to the abyss. Well, that's the opposite. If you just run around this realm and can't wait for the new Ellen interview about how she's another molestation victim, and I'm not trying to downplay that, but do I believe it really happened to Ellen? No. I mean, this is just a society, and the script it just vomits forth is so disgustingly predictable at this point. So you run around, I can't, the Ellen show, and this is true, it's actually coming to Philly, the Ellen show. I'm going to see that, and then I'm going to buy that beach home, and then this weekend, of course, I got to run around and try to look for more sex acts. And so this is not, the lifestyle that most people live here amongst us is not really the lifestyle that you would call building soul tokens. It's really following the Pope's truth drop, losing the divine element, and then the Schmiegel self just goes to the abyss. The 3 steps. It is that simple. That being said, let's tackle another fraud topic. For anybody that's not convinced that this world is a giant fraud, like who couldn't be convinced by now? But it's fun. We'll have fun with it as usual. Poke fun at the sons of bitches. Okay, it's the old money versus the new money frauds. And the concept is these Bill Gates types, this is just new money. They don't control really anything. The old money is really what's in control. And even there's levels above them. I'm just saying the old money is hidden. So let's tackle that. Chapter 44. In 2017, the Rockefellers dropped down to the 23rd richest family in America. Cue the playing of the world's smallest violin now to express our sorrow. Oh, they dropped down. It's so terrible. Please pass the tissue around. Their net worth now? A paltry $11 billion for the Rockefeller family. No, actually, it's not. It's another lie, in my opinion. And not just because they used the number 11. If they would have said their net worth is dropped to $30 billion, no, it's much, much more, in my opinion. Taking a few minutes to think about this with a degree of common sense, it's easy to see how ridiculous this is. Those in this world who hold the real wealth have hidden it from the public spotlight for a very long time. This simple exercise will demonstrate how it's almost impossible for the Rockefeller family to only be worth $11 billion. And I would predict the real net worth to be around $1 trillion or over $1 trillion. If Allen Iverson was appointed the Rockefellers' chief financial advisor right after Georgetown University, instead of Allen going into the NBA and being drafted by the 76ers, they would still be, the richest family by far, and would make Bill Gates look like a pauper. There's no way that would be $11 billion, even if Allen Iverson was managing their money. Iverson, by the way, to give you an idea what kind of financial genius he is, he once secured a $70 million NBA contract from the Sixers, and he made at least another $15 to $20 million in endorsements, mostly Reebok. Not long ago, Allen Iverson was broke. Reggie Hammonds, brought in off the street to manage the affairs of the Rockefellers, would have at a minimum the Rockefellers' net worth being around $400 billion. And this assumes Reggie Hammonds had no stint at Duke and Duke to learn anything. This assumes Reggie was brought right in off the street that after that scene where he was pretending to have no legs. A monkey throwing darts at stocks wouldn't have let the Rockefeller net worth dip below $500 billion. $11 billion. Give me a break. All of us has heard the old story, but let's revisit history. In 1910, John D. Rockefeller, Standard Oil Company, it was John D. Rockefeller's Standard Oil Company, was the ultimate definition of monopoly, so they say, controlling United States oil exploration, refining, and retail sales, all aspects. Now, the good people fighting on our side Our friendly government trust busters came in and broke up the monopoly by creating smaller companies out of Standard Oil in order to increase competition. There's just the government's always looking out for us. They're so friendly. You may have heard of these companies, the little companies that Standard Oil broke into. Just little companies, little concerns. Exxon, Chevron, Mobil, Amoco, ConocoPhillips. There are others. And a slice of the original Standard Oil still remained as well. Now consider this. If Rockefeller and the family of Rockefeller had done nothing after the 1911 breakup, we'll leave that for another time. If they've done nothing but play tennis and badminton in their backyard, in other words, not even worried about the finances, or even gave them to Allen Iverson, at the very least now they'd be worth about $1 trillion. If they just did nothing after the breakup. Well, how's that? The math's actually pretty simple. One would simply look at the stock prices of each company that came out of Standard Oil and then look at the equity appreciation, taking into account stock splits and dividends and all the rest. What, did you think the government just took those companies away from the Rockefellers, leaving them with nothing but maybe they still own 10 or 12 7-Elevens? Standard Oil was broken up into what are today's global mega oil and gas companies that earn billions of dollars each quarter. The Rockefeller's stake in each company may have varied, but I never heard any stories about the government taking majority ownership away from the Rockefellers, did you? It was about breaking them up, so there's no more monopoly. They're not going to take ownership away. Of course, they would float new shares and everything. Of course, they maintained majority ownership, maybe at different levels, but majority. Wouldn't you think John D., who was worth over $300 billion back then, $300 billion then in today's dollars, you think he would have had a few politicians in his pocket? You think he could have kept it so they didn't take majority ownership away? I think so. It was about the breakup. Shit, it was probably done so he could earn more money. The politicians came to him, groveled before him. John, we have a way you can make more money, and we'll position it to the people that we're working for them. This is fucking great. I can make more money? Yeah, a lot of companies split off to make more money. But either way, he would have made about the same money. The point of this section is the net worth is hidden. Let's do some simple exercises. If someone gave your great-grandfather tens of millions of shares of companies like Exxon and Chevron in around 1911, okay? Just gave to your great-grandfather and you just held them, did nothing, just held them. Your family's net worth today would make Bill Gates look like a bag boy at the local supermarket. So back to the premise, how can the Rockefellers only be worth $11 billion? They're not. You think every investment they ever made went bad and they squandered their money? Again, John D. at the time in today's dollars back in 1911 was worth 300 and some billion. So they would have had to squander almost everything. I mean, every investment they ever made from 1911 through today just went bad. Don't you think they were ever interested in branching out from the oil business to get involved in, say, banking, perhaps? An industry that we've already demonstrated can make up its own money? When Mr. Robinson in the movie The Graduate told Dustin Hoffman in 1969 that the next big thing is going to be plastics, do you think the Rockefeller family, their inside advisors, and all the politicians they have dinner with every night decided to steer them away from that great investment? So the recent graduate, that little prick in the movie, Dustin Hoffman, can get a good tip around a pool, but the Rockefellers are left without a clue on how to invest in the latest trends. Really? When tech stocks were going parabolic in, say, 97, 98, 99, do you think the Rockefellers just decided to sit that one out? This would have been a big opportunity lost for the Rockefellers in two areas. First, just owning the stocks. It could have doubled their money. Just, could have plopped a few $100 million in JDS Uniphase and all the other ridiculous stocks that ran up thousands of percent. But they missed that. The guy on the street got a hold of that and made big money, but they missed that. But the second is what most rich people were doing at the time, investing in the tech companies from a venture capital perspective or an angel investor perspective. Well, perhaps they did do that. And any money they invested in tech companies just went bad. Like they chose Webvan and Pets.com over the investments they should have made in Yahoo and Google. But 30-year-old Mark Cuban made $3 billion during that time selling a little tech company, and we're to believe the Rockefellers missed out on all of it, or worse, lost money during that period. A little snot-nosed kid named Zuckerberg, who started a website, is so rich today he could supposedly buy all the Rockefeller assets with cash. You believe that? Even that guy from the Social Network movie, who weaseled in to get close to Zuckerberg, a bankrupt Sean Parker, probably made $1 billion or more on Facebook. But not the Rockefellers. Nope. All their advisors, they have the whole, Rockefeller Center where people skate around under Prometheus, under the Golden Lucifer. There's a whole floor in that building, kid you not, that manages their money. But Sean Parker, bankrupt Sean Parker can wake up for the movie The Social Network on some girl's couch, and he's like, "What's this website you're looking at? The Facebook. Oh, it's really cool. Oh, I'm going to go have a meeting with Zuckerberg and serve him a bunch of Appletinis and weasel in." But the Rockefellers, they were just left out in the cold. No, the Rockefellers are just the most unlucky group in terms of investments in the history of the world. After controlling the entire world, with hundreds and hundreds of politicians in their back pocket for about 100 years. They're the only group of super rich in history that violated the axiom, it takes money to make money. But the other axiom is even more true. Once you have a ton of money, it's easier to make even more. You ever see Shark Tank? Where everybody with the greatest ideas just grovels before Mark Cuban and the rest so they can take 51%. Just put up some money to get the great idea. The other axiom holds even more true. Once you've got a ton of money, you just literally put your feet up and decide where you're going to invest. And the people with the greatest ideas come to you. No, for their net worth to be $11 billion today, and I don't know, maybe I did the research on this one 2 or 3 years ago. It doesn't matter. It's the exact number. It's about $900 billion short, no matter what the number is. For their net worth to be $11 billion today, you must believe the Rockefellers are professional money losers for about 100 years and hop from one bad investment to the next with almost no winners. They could have just been in government treasuries, T-bills, for about 100 years, and their net worth today would be hundreds of billions, not $11 billion. And if I've dressed one thing away from the book, I'm sure there's people saying that the dot-com era was filled with horrible investments and 9 out of 10 went belly up. Sure, but it only takes one winner to offset all of that. That's what all of these venture capital companies did. That's what all the Intel did, for example. Intel invested in 100 companies. The 2 or 3 that became winners made up for all the bad investments. That's what these rich people do. The best example is 3Com. 3Com in the mid-90s was a giant tech company. It's probably nothing today. I don't even know, but it was a monster. Alongside Oracle, alongside Sun Microsystems. Sun Microsystems was much bigger in the day. I lived out there in 97. Worked instead of in that business, getting rich. I was selling insurance like some asshole. But I was out there, so I saw all the shenanigans all around me. And 3Com invested in tons of horrible companies that went all belly up, but they put money in one company called Palm, and it became not Rosy Palm, it became Palm Pilot. Remember the little, anybody under 35 has no idea what I'm talking about. It was like the closest thing to a smartphone that ever existed. It had a little pencil called a stylist. Well, they invested in Palm. The net worth of Palm and the stock market cap became more than 3Com. So it only takes one winner, guys. So when I said the examples, maybe they did somebody screaming at their computer. Maybe they did invest in Pets.com. Maybe they did invest in Webvan and all the others that went belly up. It's just, these guys are not dumb. You spread your money around in 100 places, and your one winner, major winner, will offset the other 99. And if you have 4 or 5 winners, then you make billions. Again, let me return to this. If the Rockefellers would have done nothing but count stock splits and the dividend payments from oil shares between rounds of croquet in their backyard since 1911, their net worth today would be around $1 trillion. because they didn't miss out on every trend since 1911, it's likely their net worth is far more than 1 trillion today. The same is likely true of all the old money, of all the old major family names you've heard whispered about, like Rothschild, of course, but there's others: Vanderbilt, Morgan, Warburg, Harriman, the people that went down on the Titanic. They didn't take all their money down with them. The Astor, Guggenheim. There are many others in the list. Where are all these? Morgan, J.P. Morgan. We understand this company still exists, but it's just shareholders, and people like Warren Buffett own it. And the family, they might own a few gas stations. Like J.P. Morgan's name is still associated with Chase, the family that started it. I think they just didn't. Warren Buffett made those smart moves. The J.P. Morgan family, who's the biggest bank in the world, still bears their name. I think they own 10 gas stations that range between Arkansas and Texarkana, and they just made some bad investments. These guys, this old money doesn't have any influence anymore. A couple people have a question that needs to come back at me right now. Well, why would the super rich hide their money, Matt? Conspiracy theorist son of a bitch. Aren't the rich boastful, and don't most of these jerks want to tell the world how rich and successful they are all the time? Yeah, but there's a difference. Look at assholes like Mark Cuban. Sure, they want to show off, but this is only true, in my opinion, regarding the nouveau rich, or those who have recently made their money. These are the Ken Lay types and the Andy Fastel, Enron types who build obnoxious mansions in the Hollywood Hills with 25 bedrooms. These are the obnoxious Dennis Kozlowski Tyco types who buy $6,000 shower curtains. It's a true story. Dennis Kozlowski went to jail with $6,000 shower curtains. These people like to show off. These are also the gaudy singers and actors like Madonna and Mariah Carey, out to prove to the world they're no longer Brooklyn trash, but they've made something of themselves. They like to show off their money. Also, the new rich, like the Bill Gates types, and the Zuckerberg types, who are under the system's thumb, playing a role. When they're playing a part or a role for the system will let you know how wealthy they are. And they'll show off their money to a degree. Maybe not showing off, but the system will constantly put them on the cover of magazines. Zuckerberg, Buffett, Gates, they're playing the role of the world's richest people because the system wants you to believe that's all there is. So they'll show off to a degree, but not the super rich. The Rockefellers are just one example of this old hidden money. Again, like I said, there are likely many people in this world that make Bill Gates look poor. They hide their wealth to hide their influence, and their influence is beyond anything you can imagine. These are the people who run the secret societies that presidents and prime ministers need to consult with before taking their orders. What you call government is just a means to exercise the will of the old money and old influence. We've been over this, but looking back at past U.S. presidents, you can just look back at them. It proves by itself that presidents are basically puppets at control of almost nothing. Look at a man, or if that's what you want to call him, use a different word. Look at a man like George W. Bush. If the system was real and was like it was presented to us in school, where real men and women with ideas go out and campaign to convince voters to vote for them, then a man like George W. Bush would have no chance of becoming president of the United States. In Bush's case, the W stands for retard. The story of Barack Obama is even more ridiculous. A little man called a community organizer, or more appropriately, a community agitator. He's probably on Al Sharpton's Chicago team, his branch office. A complete unknown like Barack Obama with no family connections just rises up through the ranks. He goes from state senator to U.S. Senate to president, like he's casually playing naked leapfrog in the Castro district of San Francisco, with no need for Barack at all to prove himself at any level. There's no need for any accomplishments. You just give a good few speeches. That's all you need to do. You just get in front of the teleprompter and act cool. That'll get you right into the presidency. That's all one needs to do to become president. That's what I'll tell my little ones at the family gatherings who ask me how to become president. Just read a good teleprompter, son. Actually, the parents of those family members have likely advised the little ones in my family to never ask me anything, and if approached by me, to run away. Most of the country just blindly accepts the Obama story. To these dolts, how Obama, quote, rose to power just proves what this country was founded on is true. It's all true. That with a little hard work and maybe a bit of luck, anyone can become president. Well, they play that script out in such a way so you will believe the public enemy hype. Obama, the weak little basketball player, is the system's most obvious puppet. If Obama wasn't chosen basically from birth to play that role, he likely today would be working like under the Louis Anderson character in the movie Coming to America. Remember, Louis Anderson worked for McDowell's, and Akeem was sweeping the floor, and Louis Anderson said, "I'm washing lettuce today, but soon I'll be on fries." And 2 or 3 years from now, assistant manager at McDowell's. And that's when the big bucks start rolling in. Obama would be working for him. Let's look briefly at other fake presidents. How could an unlikable, non-charismatic man like Jimmy Carter become president? Richard Nixon was even more repulsive and unlikable than Jimmy. He played his role right up to the end while joking about beating his wife in the speech where he was addressing the Watergate charges. I mean, I've thrown that in videos over the years. He jokes about he no longer is beating his wife. Are you kidding me? I mean, what? Ronald Reagan was a Hollywood actor who starred in a movie with a chimp. Compare this clown show lineup of presidents to the presidents between George Washington and JFK. People who actually appeared to be real men smart enough to get elected to such an office. Most of them. The reality script, at least whatever played out then, was much more believable. Now, we can debate how long the latest phase of, quote, the control structure here has been in place. But with the clown show that begins with LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, through Donald Trump, it's an utter clown show. It's clear that these men, at least recently, we don't know how far back it goes, it's crystal clear they are not elected, but selected to fulfill their role and play their part for the system. And of course, that's exactly what FDR said in that famous quote. We didn't catch him saying anything. They have to drop truth. Looking at, again, these recent presidents, it's just mind-boggling. Imagine this police lineup in your mind. You're a witness and you're about to see a police lineup. Here they come into the room, these ex-presidents, one by one, to stand in front of a stained white cinder block wall. First comes in LBJ, then Ford, Nixon, then Carter, then Reagan, then Bush, then Clinton, then his son, Bush, then Obama, then Trump. This is such a pathetic clown show. By itself, it proves the system is not real. These men, these absolute jokes that stand before you in this lineup, are the best of the best who rose above all others to be president? Yeah. So let me summarize and get back to the main premise. If it can be demonstrated that a group of very rich families is currently, or have for hundreds of years, hid their wealth, then the logical conclusion is they're hiding their wealth for a reason. And what else can that reason be but to hide the real influence in this world? Isn't it amazing how all the old money, all the old families, where we recognize the famous names, at least recognize them, they just missed every investment opportunity and trend of the 20th century. It must be that the only people who were ever able to navigate through the new trends and technologies were young, hungry young entrepreneur types that didn't come from the silver spoon of old money. When you look at the Fortune magazine list of the richest people, it's all new money. Yes, it's all new money. I'm calling Warren Buffett new money, and the Waltons of Walmart new money. Bill Gates is new money. Bezos and his Blue Origin is new money. They all made their money in the 20th century. I mean, compared to what may exist here in this realm, the Rothschilds may be new money. I mean, we just don't know. But almost all these people on the Forbes list, everybody just bows down to that, like that's all that there is. That's all the rich people in the world. All of them pretty much made their money from 1960 onward. Where did all the big money from the first part of the century go? No billionaire equivalent in the 1800s brought their wealth into the 1900s successfully? Go try to research how long the Rothschilds have had their money. It's said by people in the know that the Rothschilds have the most money, of course, than anybody on Earth, and that's pretty much probably true. But we just don't know. But everybody, of course, says the Rothschilds are the richest. We know that. Well into the trillions, as anybody with a clue would say. We just don't know. Once you get to a trillion, it just doesn't matter. After that, you would never have a need. I guess once you get to Bezos's, who would need a penny more? You just don't. Again, you won't find this in Money Magazine or in the business section of the New York Times. Let me sum up with this. If you think Bill Gates is richer than Queen Elizabeth, then I have a series of bridges I would like to show you for your potential purchase in the New York, New Jersey area. I've done no research on the net worth of what it says about the Windsors and Queen Elizabeth, but why would I bother? It would be a lie. I don't care what any research or resource says. It would be a lie. I don't care what it says. They could have just had their money in a savings account over that many hundreds of years, and that Bill Gates would be interviewing over there to be like the guy that washes the car. What do we hear? Again, I haven't looked into this for years, but we hear the same story about the Windsors and Queen Elizabeth, that they don't really have that much money anymore, and they need public assistance, and people are always saying that too much tax dollars goes in protecting them, and then they say, no, we don't take tax dollars for our stuff, we do it ourselves, and there's that debate. But overall, they're not that rich. They just want to hold on to the monarchy, and the monarchy is important, so tourism can come to London. It's all bullcrap. If she just put her money in a damn savings account all over the world, it'd be in the trillions. I'll prove it to you just with one example. Have you ever heard of the East India Trading Company of England? In the last part of the 1700s, they supposedly supplied opium, poppy, heroin, to all of China, addicting tens of millions of those poor devils. All of China. They're the only Tony Soprano supplier. Do you think there was any money to be made in addicting tens of millions of Chinese to heroin? And opium was just one of hundreds of products moved exclusively in a gigantic monopoly almost by the East India Company all over the world. Think any money was made? They dominated the world trade in every commodity, every one, for at least a century or much, much longer. And they were backed up when they needed it by the British naval fleet. Where do you think all that money went? It's still there. It just doesn't make the Forbes list that's sold every year at the newsstands behind the cheesesteak cart. They want you to just believe that kids with websites are at the very top, so the real influence of this world can remain hidden, and prestigious senators like Chuck Schumer of course carry more weight than zit poppers like Zuckerberg. Get this. Supposedly, real silver was paid to the East India Trading Company for the opium shipments into China. What'd you think? They just accepted egg rolls and hand job happies as payment? And that's why maybe the top 10 families who controlled the East India operations, including, of course, all of the monarchy and the Queen, those people that controlled the East India Trading Company for potentially hundreds of years, they only have Allen Iverson money today because they accepted egg rolls as payment, but they accepted silver. So where did the silver go? Maybe they traded that in for happy hand jobs. Hey, baby, you got girlfriend in Vietnam? How much, baby, for that shipment of opium? Got happy hand job here. I want entire shipment. I love you long time. You want happy hands? Look, it's not derogatory. I'm just imitating what I witnessed in the movie Full Metal Jacket. In a serious summary, the old money, per the old names you recognize, still exists. They didn't all lose it. All those famous old names, they didn't all lose it. The people that make these lists, like Zuckerberg, this is part of the reality puppet show. There's another layer of wealth that make these people look like paupers. Do the people that hold this level of wealth, are they the ultimate control in this realm behind the final curtain? No. It's beyond the scope of this video to get into that now. No. They are role players here like others. They're not pulling all the strings. We've talked about that many times over the years. There's things going on here in this realm that we just can't figure out using normal means.